The galaxy was a quiet place in many ways, but only on the surface. Deep within the council chambers, in a high orbit above the luminous planet of Vera, voices hummed with tension. The Interstellar Council, composed of dozens of species, was debating one of the most sensitive matters in recent history: humans. Humans were new. Only a few decades had passed since they had been discovered beyond their homeworld, and yet their presence had already begun to stir unease among the older, more experienced races. Many council members had no interest in involving humans in interstellar conflicts. Their message was clear: avoid involving humans in any conflict. Ambassador Lysar, a tall, silver-skinned observer from the planet Zephyra, floated through the corridors of the council building. He had been assigned a special task: monitor the humans on Terra Nova. The council's official position was non-interference, but Lysar had a personal curiosity. Humans fascinated him in ways no other species had. He remembered the first time he had watched them from orbit. Their world was young, small, and fragile. Forests stretched across the continents, rivers glittered like liquid silver in the sunlight, and their cities seemed chaotic from space. Yet, there was something alive in the humans, a spark he could not name. Lysar had observed humans for weeks. They were not the strongest species. Their technology was simple compared to most interstellar civilizations. They had no faster-than-light ships, no massive fleets, no weapons capable of planetary destruction. Yet every time he watched, he saw them adapting, learning, surviving. There was a cleverness in the way they built settlements in difficult terrain, farmed harsh lands, and solved problems that would have stumped even advanced artificial intelligences. The council, however, had made its stance clear. They are fragile, a member had said in the meeting. Their involvement could escalate tensions beyond control. They are not ready. Lysar did not disagree entirely. Humans were fragile, but only in the way of something that could grow into something greater. He had begun keeping detailed reports, describing not just their physical abilities but their social habits, their ingenuity, their tendency to cooperate under pressure. On Terra Nova, life went on largely unaware of the cosmic eyes watching them. Humans had settled in a valley surrounded by mountains. The first structures were simple, wooden frames, stone foundations, but the humans quickly learned to build smarter. They constructed homes using materials that resisted the harsh winds, irrigation systems that made the rocky soil fertile, and workshops where tools were made more efficient. One human, a young engineer named Myra, had become known among the settlers for her quick thinking. When a sudden storm washed away part of the irrigation system, she organized a group of workers and repaired it in less than a day. Lysar noted this in his reports. Human problem-solving is rapid and adaptable. They do not panic under sudden environmental challenges. Observation continues. Meanwhile, back in the council chambers, a heated debate continued. Some members argued that humans should be protected at all costs, while others suggested relocating them to a neutral zone, away from potential conflicts. But Lysar understood the subtle danger. Humans did not fit into the council's neat categorizations. They were not weak, they were unpredictable. As Lysar returned to his observation post above Terra Nova, he reflected on the irony of the council's warning. Avoid involving humans in any conflict, they said. But if conflict reached their world, how could humans be avoided? He suspected that the council had underestimated them. On Terra Nova, the humans were beginning to notice subtle signs of tension. Traders from neighboring star systems had begun arriving, and strange messages were intercepted on communication devices. Some humans whispered about potential dangers from the skies, while others dismissed it as rumor. Yet the community's leaders, including Myra, took no chances. They trained, prepared defenses, and established communication networks across the valley. One evening, Myra stood atop a ridge overlooking the settlement. The twin suns of Terra Nova were setting, casting a golden glow over the valley. She felt a mixture of pride and unease, pride for what humans had built and unease for what might come. She did not know that unseen above, a silver-skinned observer floated silently, recording every detail. Lysar was fascinated by human emotion. Unlike most species he had observed, humans displayed a deep range of feelings: fear, hope, determination, and joy all at the same time. It was these emotions that drove their ingenuity. While the humans feared danger, they also worked tirelessly to solve problems. While they were vulnerable, they found ways to protect themselves. The next morning, Terra Nova experienced its first real test. A meteor storm entered the atmosphere. The Council had not anticipated this. Humans, armed only with basic tools and engineering knowledge, worked quickly. Myra coordinated teams to repair damaged buildings, reinforce walls, and redirect water channels to prevent flooding. By nightfall, the valley was mostly safe, and the human spirit had grown stronger through the ordeal. Lysar recorded his observations with meticulous care. Human resilience is remarkable. Their response to natural threats is rapid and highly coordinated. Their society demonstrates emergent problem-solving abilities beyond what is expected for their technological level. Continued monitoring recommended. Back in the council chambers, reports arrived from all corners of the galaxy. Tensions between two advanced alien factions were rising. These factions had once been allies, but disagreements over resource-rich planets threatened war. The council reminded all members, humans must not be involved. Yet, Lysar understood something the council could not see. Humans might be fragile, but they were far more adaptable than anyone predicted. In the coming weeks, the galaxy would be forced to acknowledge that humans were not simply passive observers. They could influence events in ways the Council had never anticipated. As the moons of Terra Nova rose, casting silvery light over the valley, Myra and the other humans gathered in the central square. They did not know it yet, but their actions in the coming months could decide the fate of the planet, and perhaps, one day, the galaxy itself. Lysar observed silently, knowing that his role as a mere witness might soon change. Humans had captured his attention not because they were powerful, but because they were uniquely human, resilient, clever, and capable of turning every weakness into an unexpected strength. He made a final note in his report before returning to orbit. The Council may caution against involving humans, but humans may not remain passive. They adapt, they endure, and they surprise. All future actions must consider their presence carefully. The first part of this story ends with a quiet tension in the galaxy. The Council believes it can avoid involving humans. The humans believe they are simply living on a quiet planet. And Lysar knows the truth. In a galaxy full of rules and warnings, humans might just become the most unpredictable factor of all. Weeks had passed since the meteor storm shook Terra Nova. The humans had rebuilt quickly, their unity stronger than ever. Myra, now recognized as one of the most capable engineers in the settlement, had become a central figure in organizing defenses and infrastructure. The humans lived with quiet determination, unaware that their planet was about to be tested in ways no natural disaster could bring. Far beyond Terra Nova, in the cold reaches of space, a fleet of alien ships drifted silently. These were the scouts of a powerful species known as the Varkari, who had long eyed Terra Nova for its rich resources and strategic location. Their sensors detected something unusual, signs of intelligent life with unexpected ingenuity. The Council's warning echoed faintly in Lysar's mind. Do not involve humans. But the Varkari were unaware of any caution. Lysar hovered above Terra Nova, watching the humans work. He had become almost invisible to them, a silent observer recording patterns, learning behaviors. He noticed how they reacted under pressure. They did not panic, they assessed, they adapted. This was different from most species he had encountered. When faced with danger, humans did not rely solely on strength or technology. They relied on creativity and collaboration. On a bright morning, Myra noticed the first signs of unusual activity. Her sensors, rudimentary by interstellar standards but finely tuned, detected disturbances in the upper atmosphere. Satellites, simple but effective, showed objects entering the planet's orbit. Word spread quickly through the settlement. Unknown ships had approached Terra Nova. Panic rippled briefly through the population, but Myra stepped forward. "We cannot wait for them to act first," she said. "We must prepare, use what we have. We survive by working together." Teams mobilized immediately. Children and elders were moved to secure shelters. Engineers strengthened the structures, using locally sourced materials in ways the Varkari would not expect. Farmers set up barriers to protect food supplies. Everyone contributed. The humans understood one simple truth: survival required clever thinking more than weapons. Lysar watched with growing fascination. Their coordination is impressive. They improvise defenses, anticipate threats. Unlike other species, they learn quickly from the environment rather than relying solely on pre-existing technology. The Varkari fleet, meanwhile, had already noticed the settlement's activity. They expected humans to panic, to scatter. Instead, they found structures reinforced, communication networks active, and humans moving with clear organization. The Varkari sent a warning: "Leave your planet, we claim it." Humans read the message, but there was no fear in their eyes. Myra gathered the leaders in the central hall. "We cannot match their strength," she said, "but we can use our intelligence. Let's think. How can we make our weaknesses into strengths?" The plan was simple yet clever. The humans would create traps using natural terrain, camouflage critical areas, and use decoys to confuse sensors. They used mirrors and reflective surfaces to create illusions, making the settlement appear larger and more fortified than it was. Water channels were redirected to slow movement, and simple drones, crafted from everyday machinery, scouted ahead. The Varkari, confident in their technology, underestimated the humans. When their first ship approached the valley, it was met with unexpected resistance. Mirrors reflected their sensors, causing confusion. Water channels created obstacles for landing craft. Drones, small and cheap, reported positions inaccurately, leading the Varkari to miscalculate. Back in orbit, Lysar could not contain his amazement. Humans were not simply defending themselves. They were adapting faster than any species he had monitored. Their strategies combined instinct, creativity, and coordination in ways that machines alone could not replicate. As the Varkari realized the settlement was not an easy target, frustration grew. They deployed a small strike team to test human defenses. Myra and her team observed from their makeshift command center, hidden beneath reinforced structures. They noted the strike patterns, predicted movements, and used simple, low-tech methods to counter each attempt. Each human action was deliberate, yet flexible. When one plan failed, another was implemented immediately. The strike team faltered. The humans' ability to adapt confused the Varkari. Every trap, every misdirection, every clever diversion forced them to pause. Lysar recorded in his report, "Human adaptability under pressure exceeds predictions. They analyze, improvise, and execute simultaneously. They do not surrender to fear or overwhelming odds." Days passed. The humans' determination and ingenuity became a slow, unyielding resistance. Myra organized her people not just to survive, but to turn the environment itself into a strategic advantage. They learned the flight patterns of the Varkari ships, discovered weak points in their technology, and used their knowledge of the terrain to channel enemy movement into predictable paths. Meanwhile, in the council chambers, debates continued. Reports from Lysar reached them daily. Some members were impressed, others worried. If humans could survive a direct encounter with a powerful species using only intelligence and creativity, what else could they do? Could they become more than observers? The Council began to realize that humans might not remain passive. Back on Terra Nova, the climax of the confrontation approached. The Varkari, frustrated by delays, launched a larger assault, hoping to overwhelm the humans through sheer force. Myra anticipated this. She had studied every possible scenario. The humans' defenses were not strong in the traditional sense, but their cleverness turned each disadvantage into an opportunity. When the assault began, the valley transformed into a maze. Reflective surfaces confused sensors. Water channels slowed movement. Improvised barricades funneled attackers into predictable paths. The humans used small, fast vehicles to create distractions, leading the Varkari into traps. They even used sound and light in unusual ways, making it seem as if more defenders were present than actually existed. The Varkari were astonished. They had expected a weak, disorganized species. Instead, they faced creatures capable of rapid problem-solving, coordinated action, and unorthodox thinking. Each human decision seemed unpredictable yet effective. Lysar, observing from orbit, could barely contain his excitement. He had witnessed many species in conflict, but none had combined creativity, courage, and cooperation like this. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but in ways that made them remarkably effective. By nightfall, the Varkari paused their assault. Their ships hovered in confusion, unsure how to proceed. The humans, exhausted but undeterred, had survived another day. Myra gathered her team. "We've learned a lot," she said. "They underestimate us. That's our advantage. Tomorrow we'll be ready for whatever comes next." Above Terra Nova, Lysar sent his report to the Council. Humans face overwhelming odds yet adapt with intelligence, cooperation, and ingenuity. They are not passive observers. Their survival depends on creativity and strategic thinking rather than strength. Continued monitoring essential. Humans may become a decisive factor in future conflicts. For the first time, some members of the Council began to reconsider. Perhaps avoiding humans entirely was no longer possible or wise. The species that had seemed fragile and weak might, in fact, hold the key to survival and resolution in conflicts far beyond their world. On Terra Nova, the humans rested for the night, unaware of the attention they had drawn. They had survived through ingenuity, bravery, and unity. Each human had played a part, each mind had contributed, and together they had turned potential defeat into resilience. Myra looked out over the valley, the twin suns having disappeared beyond the horizon. She felt a quiet confidence. They had faced their first real threat and had prevailed, not through weapons or technology but through thinking, working together, and never underestimating themselves. Lysar, high above in the silent void of space, smiled faintly. Humans had passed the first test. The galaxy might not be ready for them, but it was becoming clear that humans were ready for the galaxy. The days following the Varkari assault were tense but filled with determination. Terra Nova's humans had survived the first major test, but everyone knew that the danger was far from over. Myra walked through the settlement early one morning, observing people repairing damages, reinforcing walls, and quietly training for future threats. She felt a mix of pride and responsibility. The fate of their small community rested on every decision. Above the planet, Lysar observed the humans silently. His reports had grown longer, filled with detailed accounts of human behavior, ingenuity, and problem-solving. The Council had read them, some with disbelief, some with awe. Now they debated quietly whether to intervene or to continue observing. But Lysar knew the humans were no longer passive participants. They had adapted, learned, and grown stronger with each challenge. The Varkari fleet remained in orbit, cautious after the first encounter. Their sensors had underestimated the humans' resourcefulness, and they had lost confidence in their earlier assumptions. Their leader, Commander Varric, was furious. He had expected a quick submission, yet what he saw instead was a species capable of turning its environment into an ally and using minimal technology in extraordinary ways. On Terra Nova, Myra gathered her leadership council. "They will come again," she said, her voice steady but calm. "And when they do, we must be ready, not by fighting like them, but by thinking in ways they cannot predict." Her plan was simple but ambitious. Instead of relying on conventional weapons, the humans would create a network of intelligence, traps, and diversions that would force the Varkari to negotiate rather than destroy. Myra divided tasks carefully: scouts to monitor movements, engineers to create clever obstacles, communication teams to coordinate actions, and the farmers and builders to reinforce structures and maintain morale. Every human had a role, and every role mattered. Meanwhile, Lysar made his presence more deliberate. Though invisible to humans, he studied every choice Myra made. He realized that humans' greatest strength was their adaptability. Unlike most species, humans did not need perfect conditions or advanced tools to succeed. They observed, learned, and adjusted, often in the same moment. The Varkari made their move. A larger fleet approached, and the humans' settlement was once again under threat. Myra watched from the command center as shadows of massive ships crossed the valley. But she did not panic. The humans had spent weeks preparing. Every hill, forest, and river had been mapped and used strategically. When the first Varkari ships landed, they were met with unexpected challenges. The valley had become a maze. False settlements, camouflaged traps, and misleading signals forced the Varkari to split their forces. Simple yet clever devices delayed movement. Water channels flooded paths. Sound-emitting contraptions created illusions of human forces, and reflective surfaces distorted sensor readings. Every step the Varkari took was calculated by the humans, every reaction anticipated. Commander Varric grew frustrated. His fleet was superior in size, technology, and firepower, yet the humans continued to evade destruction. Every attempt to gain the upper hand resulted in confusion and delay. The Varkari began to see that force alone would not win this conflict. Lysar observed, his admiration growing. Humans were teaching themselves to think like their opponents, to see the patterns of strategy, and to create solutions faster than the Varkari could respond. The humans' coordination had become almost instinctive. They were not only surviving, they were dictating the terms of engagement. Myra realized that to end the conflict, she needed more than defense. She needed diplomacy, subtle yet firm. Using captured Varkari communication channels, she sent messages proposing negotiation. The messages were simple. Humans did not wish to fight but would defend their homes with cleverness if attacked. The tone was confident, demonstrating intelligence without aggression. Varric hesitated. He was not accustomed to opponents who could challenge his perception without direct confrontation. He consulted his advisors, who were divided. The humans had survived every test. The cost of victory through force alone was becoming too high. During the standoff, Myra and her team continued their work. They created paths that led the Varkari away from critical areas, used sound and light to make their numbers seem larger, and ensured that every human was positioned to respond to the enemy's moves. It was not brute force. It was strategy, patience, and psychological insight. The turning point came when a small group of Varkari scouts wandered into a cleverly designed trap. They were not harmed, but they were disoriented and captured temporarily. Myra treated them with respect, ensuring they were unharmed, and then sent a message back to Varric. "We do not wish for bloodshed. Leave our people, and there will be no further resistance." Varric, impressed and cautious, realized that he could not defeat humans in a straightforward battle. Their unpredictability, intelligence, and teamwork made every assault costly. For the first time in his career, he considered negotiation instead of war. The Council received detailed reports from Lysar. The humans had not only survived, but had influenced the outcome of a potential planetary conquest through ingenuity and resilience. The debate in the chambers shifted from whether humans should be protected to whether humans could serve as a model of strategy and cooperation in future conflicts. Back on Terra Nova, Myra met with her people. "We have proven that strength is not always in weapons," she said. "Our intelligence, creativity, and cooperation are what make us strong. If we continue to work together, we can face anything, even forces greater than ourselves." The Varkari fleet eventually retreated. Their leader had learned that power alone was not sufficient. Intelligence, adaptability, and cleverness could turn even overwhelming force into uncertainty. Humans had won not through aggression, but through ingenuity, courage, and unity. Lysar submitted his final report. Humans demonstrate a capacity for strategic thinking, resilience, and coordination that exceeds expectations for their technological level. They are capable of influencing outcomes without reliance on conventional strength. Humans are a species to watch. They may redefine engagement, negotiation, and survival in this galaxy. The Council, humbled, revised its earlier stance. Humans would no longer be seen as passive or fragile. They were a species whose unpredictability was a strength, whose ingenuity could turn weakness into advantage. They had proven, without firing advanced weapons or possessing fleets, that survival and influence were not solely measured by firepower, but by the mind, courage, and unity. As the twin suns of Terra Nova rose once more, Myra looked out over the valley. The settlement had endured. The humans had endured. And though the galaxy beyond remained full of challenges, they had proven that even a small, simple species could shape the course of events through intelligence, cooperation, and determination. Lysar observed silently from orbit one last time before returning to the Council. The humans had passed the greatest test yet, not of firepower but of ingenuity. They had taught the galaxy a lesson. Survival, influence, and heroism were not dictated solely by strength or technology. Sometimes, the simplest species, working together, thinking creatively, and refusing to give in to fear, could achieve the impossible. On Terra Nova, Myra turned to her team. "We have done well," she said, "but this is only the beginning. The galaxy is bigger than our valley, and one day, we may need to use everything we have learned here, together, as humans, to face challenges even greater than the ones we have already overcome." And so, the humans of Terra Nova became more than survivors. They became a symbol of resilience, ingenuity, and hope. The galaxy had warned the Council to avoid involving humans in conflict, but it had been humans who had quietly, cleverly, and courageously changed the course of events. In the end, the Council had no choice but to acknowledge what Lysar had always known. Humans were unpredictable, creative, and formidable, not because of strength or weapons, but because of their minds, hearts, and unity. The stars above Terra Nova gleamed, silent witnesses to a species that had proven, in the most remarkable way, that being human was more powerful than anyone had imagined.